Hi, everybody. My name is Morgan Davidson. I am the Director of Marketing and Communications at the Canadian Liver Foundation. And welcome to our first Meet the Researcher session interview for 2022. For those of you who are new to the series, we introduced this last year to really create a space that can better connect you, our community, to the actual people who are doing important research in the world of liver disease. Donations to the CLF help fund this important life-saving research, helping to advance prevention, diagnosis, treatments, and even cures for liver disease. Today, we're changing things up a little bit. We're actually connecting with Amber Hager, one of our graduate studentship recipients from 2020, who received the Designated Hepatobiliary, did I say that right?
You said it right, yeah.
Research grant in Alberta. Amber is a registered dietitian and is currently in the second year of a master's program in Human Nutrition and Metabolism at the University of Alberta. Her areas of interest include pediatric liver and gastrointestinal disorders, and her main research focus is on how muscle wasting and alterations in body composition affects pre- and post-operative outcomes in children undergoing liver transplantation. We're so proud and honored to be able to provide grants like this to students like Amber, and I'm really excited to have her with us today to share more about what she's working on. So Amber, thank you so much and welcome.
Thank you so much for having me.
So I always do sort of the bio formal introduction, but I always really like to start with you kind of in your own words and maybe expanding where you like on who you are and how you sort of got into the liver space specifically.
Thank you for the great introduction. Like you said, my name is Amber. I am a registered dietitian, and I'm currently completing a master's degree here at the University of Alberta. And I actually got into the liver space starting in my undergraduate degree. So I was training to become a registered dietitian, and I had always been really interested in sort of the clinical sciences, and I was looking for some hands-on volunteer experience where I would be able to work with patients. So I started volunteering in 2015 in a lab group, which is actually the same lab group that I'm in today, completing my master's degree. And through the connections with that lab group, I had the opportunity to apply for a summer studentship. So for those who don't know, it's kind of like a summer job where you're able to work and do research and get paid for it. And that summer studentship was in the summer of 2016, and it was actually funded by the Canadian Liver Foundation. So we've kind of come full circle here. And the project funded for that summer was in the area of pediatric liver transplantation. So that was kind of my first introduction, or where I started my journey in the liver space. And then from there, I enjoyed research so much that I continued to apply each summer after that to different studentships, where I was able to continue working on various projects still related to liver disease in children. And then after I graduated from my degree, I completed an internship. It's kind of like you have to do it, all dietitians have to do it at the end of their training to gain more clinical experience. And one of my rotations was actually in liver transplantation. So it was a really exciting time for me because I was pretty familiar with sort of the pediatric research side of things, but it gave me more of a well-rounded perspective on the need for research. And I was able to get to know the patients that I do this research for sort of every day. So it's been kind of a long journey to where I am now, but I keep coming back to the liver space, and I hope to continue to work within it once I'm done my degree, which I'd started shortly after my internship. So.
Amazing. It's so important to have people in the space who are specifically looking at the pediatric side of things. So it's wonderful. So as we mentioned, you've been the recipient of a grant and the studentships from us. Can you expand more on what you are sort of actively working on and the work you have in progress and how it can impact people with liver disease?
Sure. So the project that's actually funded by the Canadian Liver Foundation for my degree is called the STRONG Trial, which is a home-based resistance exercise program for children after liver transplantation. So if we kind of circle back to the research that I completed when I was in my undergraduate degree, one of the things we found from that research was that children who have liver disease and are undergoing liver transplant have extremely low muscle compared to those, just compared to healthy children. So having this sort of low muscle can put children at risk for poor outcomes after transplantation, increased risk of infection. It takes them longer to recover after transplant surgery, increased risk of different complications. So this can all have an impact on the quality of life of children after transplantation. So this muscle is something that we really wanted to target with the current project that's happening right now. So to tell you a little bit more about the project, it is a 12-week home-based resistance exercise program using resistance bands. So we give the children different resistance bands of varying tension, and the program is progressive. So for the first 4 weeks, they start with lower repetitions. The next 4 weeks, they increase the repetitions. And then for the last 4 weeks, it's further increased. And we've developed video content for the children to follow along with at home. So at the beginning of the study, we give them a tablet that they can take home, and it's loaded up with different exercises targeting different muscle groups on the body. And then they watch the videos 3 times a week. And yeah, so it's for children 6 to 18 years old. So we've got kind of a wide range of ages within the group, but we've developed kind of different exercises and video content depending on if they're sort of in that younger age group or older age group. And at the beginning of the study, they come to our research unit here at the university, and we do some baseline measurements, different muscle function tests. We measured their muscle mass using MRI imaging. And then we kind of repeat those measurements at the end of the study to see if there's been any improvements. And we're just hoping that we can see some improvements in both muscle mass, but even just muscle strength or function. And we're hopeful that we can reverse this low muscle that we commonly see in children with liver disease, improving outcomes. And we also just hope that the children have fun with it, and it'll encourage them to, stay active after transplantation.
Yeah, I love how accessible that is. I love that it's not like gym based or, you need a lot of heavy equipment. Like I'm sure so many people can appreciate, especially now having, I don't know about you, but like, I think I went through all the home gym equipment in the pandemic and trying to find, what I could do from home and something that was affordable that I didn't need to spend a lot of money on. And that's just for, me, a grown adult, just trying to implement a regular exercise routine. But it's amazing that it's, really looking at obviously something that is an important issue and maybe not something you always consider when you're thinking about, the transplant process. We talk a lot about liver transplantation, but we talk a lot about the actual, process of getting on the list or finding a donor and going through the surgery and the procedures. But to your point, you say it's 6 to 18, and obviously if you're a pediatric patient and you receive a transplant at a young age, you're looking at a road to recovery that extends well beyond just your surgery. So it's really important that somebody's looking at that. So that's great that you're doing that work. What would you say excites you the most about the research and progress being made in this work? I mean, I know this grant was 2020, so you've been working on this for a little while now. So what have you seen anything exciting like in the progress with the people who are participating, and just being in the liver space, is there anything that's exciting you sort of more broadly in the world of liver disease, and I guess in your case, the pediatric space?
Sure. So, I think with research, there's always something new and exciting to learn and discover. I think with my project specifically, what really excites me the most is kind of looking down the long-term road and being able to see what sort of outcomes of that the project might have, and the potential for maybe some of these exercises to be implemented, maybe prescribed to children kind of clinically after transplantation, or maybe we can make them more widely available to all children undergoing transplant. Maybe it's not just this kind of small population that I've been looking at, as well as some of these I mentioned these muscle function tests that we do kind of in the beginning of the study and at the end of the study. I'm thinking maybe it would be really exciting to see them as part of routine follow-up to screen for children at risk for low muscle, and being able to use those kind of tools to identify those who might be in need of these kind of exercise programs or interventions. And yeah, I think just the longer term and kind of wider impact that a small project like this could potentially have is really exciting. I think in more of the broad study of liver disease, what excites me the most is just kind of the strides forward that we're always seeing in the prevention and treatment of various liver diseases, with some new medications or improvements in medications, antiviral therapies, and also with different surgical and medical therapies to help care for patients undergoing transplant. In terms of transplantation, we've come quite a long way since the first transplant, and patients are living longer, healthier lives. And I think that's thanks to new research that's always constantly being done. And I think it's just very exciting, and there's a lot more to look forward to in the future.
Absolutely. I love that point. It's almost like reminding people there's no small research project, or there's no small thing. And if there's one thing I've learned having a lot of these conversations over the last year with researchers, it's that there is a lot of overlap and sort of a ripple effect where you might be looking in one area, or a researcher might be working on one thing, but then there's like these byproducts that come out of that research, and it can affect even greater populations than maybe where you were looking, or other disease groups or other organizations like ours who are also trying to sort of look in the same spaces. So that's an excellent point to make, because even for something like this that maybe on the surface, you're not exactly studying for a cure for liver disease or anything like that, but it has such a significant impact and can really make such a difference well beyond what maybe you see in front of you right now. What do you love most about your work? What do you enjoy from your day-to-day? It sounds like you get to work with a lot of kids, which is exciting.
Yeah. I would say research in general can be challenging and hard at times, but I think what I like most is that what I'm doing will have an impact, even if it's a small impact on people's lives in the short term, with the studies that I've got going on right now, but also in the long term, with the results of future studies, like you said, that might come from this research, or clinical practices as well that might be a result of the study. So I think that's very exciting. And I think one of the best things that I found with my job and my current position as a master's student is that I'm constantly pushed outside of my comfort zone, trying new things, whether that be lab work or working with patients. Before this, I wasn't always too familiar working with kids. So it's definitely kind of pushed me outside of my comfort zone, presenting at conferences or writing papers or even doing interviews like this. Every day is just different, and requires me to think on my feet. And it can be challenging, but I look back at who I was when I kind of started this degree, and I think like, wow, I've just come quite a long ways, and I just like to see how it's made me grow as an individual, a professional, and just made me like an overall better clinician. And I think it has prepared me well for the work that I hope to continue to do in the future. Yeah.
Yeah, I love hearing that side of it. The other piece that's come up a lot when I've spoken with researchers in the last year, because I've spoken with a lot of individuals who have been working in research for decades at this point, and they work with a lot of young up and coming researchers, and they all always say that they're so energized working with sort of the next generation of researchers, and they're so inspired by that. So it's just exciting and interesting to hear you sort of talk about the flip side of that, which is how exciting it is to be sort of growing and evolving as a professional in this space, and doing, work that you guys are all so passionate about, which is fantastic. We like to close these with getting to know the researchers kind of beyond just their work. So when you aren't, head down in your research, how do you like to sort of unwind and relax away from, I guess, the office, for lack of a better word?
Well, when I have spare time, which is not a lot, but I've always enjoyed like different outdoor activities. Being from Alberta, we are not too far away from the Rocky Mountains, so we try to make trips when we can there for different ski trips or hiking or different activities there. But I found that with COVID and actually all of the lockdowns, that I've actually forced me to take up some new hobbies because I didn't have much else to do. So last summer I actually had bought a bike. I started biking. We've got a lot of beautiful trails kind of around the city, so I've been doing some exploring there when the weather permits. In the wintertime, I've been doing some more skating. We've got some pretty good ice rinks here, so if the weather's good, it's a good way to get out and get some quick exercise. But I think after like a long day of work, nothing beats just curling up on the couch and watching a movie or some Netflix or something like that.
I feel like we've all been able to, like, I know there's the ongoing joke, like, I finished Netflix. Like, I think we're all with this pandemic, we all know that feeling very well. If you had to choose a totally different career unrelated to what you do now, what would it be?
I think that's a hard question because I love what I do so much. But if I had to choose, I think I would go in like more of a creative route, something like graphic design. When I went to high school, I actually went to a performing and visual arts school. So I had the opportunity to take different art classes, photography classes, and a graphic design course. And I just thought it was all so interesting. I remember in one of the courses, we got to design like a movie poster and even like motion graphics for games, which was just really fun. And even now, when I have to give a presentation or make a poster, I will often get out my iPad and start designing some of the icons or graphics for the poster or presentation, because some of the images you find online are copyright. So
Right.
I just kind of find it's a fun little way of bringing art and design into my research through those presentations or posters. And I think it's really fun. So maybe in a different life, I would do that.
Yeah, no kidding. I also went to performing arts high school with like a big focus on music, but I feel like it's got to be such a nice way to be able to flex a different part of your brain, like kind of different area that maybe you don't get to tap into very often. That's how I feel about, music and all of that. Anytime I can kind of play in that space, it's always nice to just like switch gears for a moment. So
Exactly.
Yeah, what an amazing skill set to have. Well, that is the end of my questions. Amber, it's been so nice to connect. I'm very interested to see where your research study goes and how this whole sort of project unfolds. We're just so happy to be able to support folks like you with, the amazing support from our community, which is hopefully going to make a significant difference for people living with liver disease. And in this case, young people living with liver disease. Which is a group that we really try to talk about much more, because we tend to focus on adults living with liver disease. So thank you for all of your work and everything you do, and thanks for chatting with us today.
No problem, and thanks for having me. It was a lovely time to be here.